Hello, in this video I'm going to be talking about the filter method built into arrays in ES5 JavaScript and later. So what exactly is the filter method used for? It's used to create a new array that contains only elements that pass a certain test, pass a certain predicate. So to show you what we had to do before filter, let's say my goal was to look at this array of numbers and create a new array that contains only the even values. So we might have had a function called getEvens. It has an array as a parameter. I'm using TypeScript for this example, but just ignore this type annotation if you're not using TypeScript. And so it creates a new empty array. We loop through the existing array, and basically anytime we find an element that is even or it passes this test, this truth test, we're going to push that value onto the result array. So we're building up a blank array from scratch, and then we're returning that at the end. Now you can imagine this could get tiresome to always have to solve this problem over and over again throughout your coding career. So that's why the even function is going to be useful. If we were to call this function that I've created and pass in set3, it would return an array with just 12 and 22. Here's the full set3 for reference. So that is our goal here. That's the purpose of the filter function. So how do we actually use the filter function? Well, like I said, it's an array method. So what that means is that we're going to take the array. So in this case, it's going to be set3. And we're going to call the filter method. And the filter method takes a parameter, and that parameter is a callback. I'm going to be using an ES6 arrow function. So for this one, the first parameter, you can name it whatever you want, but it's going to be the value at the current position in the array, because what it's doing is it's looping through the array behind the scenes. So I'll just call that val. And that's the minimum that you need. If you want additional information, you can. The second parameter, if you'd like to access it, is index. And the third parameter is the entire array. Sometimes that's useful. So if you need those things, you can put them there. I'm not going to, because I only care about the value right now. So what we have to do in this callback function, this is our predicate. So what this means is that in this callback function, we return true if we want the current element. Remember, behind the scenes it's looping through. If we want the current element to be included in the final filtered output array, that's when we return true. If you return false, or you don't return anything at all, then it does not get put in the final output array. Also, .filter is returning a new array, so we need to capture it in a variable. I'll call this result. Okay. So create a new array containing only the even values from set3. So here's set3. We're getting our values. We want to only keep the one, so only return true when the number, the value, is even. So you could have an if statement saying if it's even, return true, or you could simplify it just by saying return val mod2 is equal to 0, right? Because this is a Boolean expression. This is something that's either going to be true or false. So val mod2 equals 0, that's another way of saying even. We divide by 2 and the remainder is 0. So when this is true, that means it's even, so we want to return true. So let's just stick the word return in front of it and return true. But if it's odd, then this is going to be false, and we're going to return false, which means it will not make it into the final result array. So this is a good shorthand way of doing this. So I'm going to console log result there, and let's see what it looks like. So I'm going to, because I'm using TypeScript, I have a custom build process set up, but this video isn't about TypeScript. It is about just the usage of this code. So you can use this in the front end, in Node, wherever. So this creates a new array with values 12 and 22. So if you take a look at set3, if you pick out only the even values, you would have 12 and 22. So that appears to be working correctly. Let's move on to the next example. Let me toggle word wrap. So this one says, create a new array containing only the exam score records for people who scored 95 or higher. So I'm going to say result is now equal to, let's take a look at our sample data. Here's our exam score records. Okay, there are these objects with name and result properties. So I'm going to say exam scores dot filter. And this time I'm going to show you how to do this with an ES6 arrow function shorthand. So because I only care about having one parameter, I'm just going to get the, score record. So I can call that score record. I can just abbreviate it SR. And we're also going to be returning something very simple. So I can do an implied return. So what that means is I can say SR dot result is greater than 95. Let's see what's going on here. All right, people who scored 95 or higher. Okay. Oh. Yeah. So this is actually just a TypeScript thing. Let me do this. Let result 2. Okay. It's because this variable type had been set to be an array of numbers, and then this would have been an array of objects. So again, little weird TypeScript thing. If you're using JavaScript, it won't be an issue. So let's talk about what happened here. Used a few shorthands. Because I only expect one parameter in this arrow function, I could drop the parentheses around the parameter. It looks a little weird. And then to the right of the arrow, because I want to return whatever this is, by using a shorthand, I can drop the curly braces and just put the expression here, and that will be returned from the arrow function. So this one could have been simplified. We could have dropped the parentheses around val. We could have dropped this curly brace and the word return, and it would have just been this expression. And it's the same thing. It just means calculate this and then return that value. So this is going to be, again, a Boolean expression. This is going to be true or false. So is the result greater than 95 or not? And that's what gets returned. So now I want to console log result 2. Let me go ahead and run this. So our first result is in 12, 22. And then finally, we have these score records, John, who made a 99, and Josie, who made a 100, both of which are greater than 95. More importantly, though, if we take a look at our original data, James did not make the cut. He made a 92, so he did not pass that predicate. The dot result property was not greater than 95, so he was filtered out. He was not included in the final results. So again, if you take a look at this code, this is much more concise than having to write a for loop to go through your data and having to put an if statement and all of that stuff. So this is the advantage to using the filter method.